Not much sleep, I should say, but I was able to put my head down into a pillow and just shut my eyes, get some modicum of sleep, and I don't know if I feel any better in regards to what happened on Monday night. Now, I'm not as, I'm not losing my voice like I did last night because I was screaming at my television. I was screaming on Instagram. I wasn't like furiously angry to the point where I was getting a headache. Okay. I don't feel like that right now. I think what's happened now is that I have taken it in and I've kind of come to the realization of what I thought this team was going to be might just come to fruition much quicker than I thought. Okay. Now, if you've been a supporter of the show, the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast with me, Asif Body, I've always said that this team is not a Super Bowl contending team. We have too many holes on defense and, we have too many question marks on this football team to be considered a Super Bowl contender. Now, I still think we can be a 10 to 11 win team based on the talent alone on the offensive side of the ball, especially when A.J. Brown comes back, because that will certainly help the alignment in this offense, which is, as great of a player as A.J. Brown is, the fact that he's not there and the offense looks like shit is mind-boggling to me. That's another discussion for another day. But I would at least have thought that, the younger players on this defense will be able to get enough reps and get better as the season goes on. Okay. And last night did not give me any hope. Okay. I don't think it gave any other Eagle fans hope that this season could turn out differently than last season. Okay. And anybody who has doubted Philadelphia is proven to be right once again. This team does not look like it's ready to compete for big games in the NFC, in the NFL, okay? All of the doubters seem right. And we're going to kind of talk about some of the repercussions of what these potential mishaps could lead to and whether or not these things that constitute a bad football team, whether it's a blip or a trend, okay? Because there's a lot of things that this Philadelphia Eagles team does that you would check for, yes, this is bad football teams. This is what bad football teams do. But yet, nobody considers Philadelphia a bad football team. They consider them to be a contender in the NFC. And I guess what this episode ultimately will be about in the end is maybe tempering the expectations that we have for this team, because maybe, just maybe, those who thought Howie Roseman and this organization didn't build the greatest roster was right after all. And I say this, I'm tooting my own horn here, because I thought Howie Roseman's offseason was just okay. I thought it was a B+ offseason. He brought in players, brought in talent. Did it amount to anything? So far, none. Hasn't drafted necessarily well. He's gotten like a 50% clip on his hits, which is fine, but again, not indicative of what a great football Super Bowl contending team does. Okay. We'll kind of talk about it as this episode continues on, but let's talk about what happened Monday night. We saw the collapse on defense after the offense didn't convert on that third down play to Saquon Barkley where he dropped the ball. Now, I know everybody is saying, hey, Saquon, you got to catch that football. You got to be able to make the play. You're the best player on the offense tonight. You need to be the guy that closes the deal. You need to have the ball in your hands, and you did, and you dropped it. Now, I'm not upset that you wanted to give Saquon Barkley the ball. I never agreed with the idea of throwing it in that situation. Quite frankly, when you were running the ball so damn well all night with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, damn near both. I think both of them together had like 100, almost 180 yards rushing combined. To me, you just pound the rock. I don't care what Atlanta's doing. Loading up the box, loading up the middle of the field. If they're loading up the middle of the field, run it to the outside. I don't give a shit. You run the damn ball. And I'm not somebody who's going to criticize the result of a play or get upset that the play call was that. No. It's understanding the situation here. Great football teams, Super Bowl contending football teams, don't leave outcomes to chance. They just don't. Every great football team in the National Football League tries to minimize the amount of chance that would ruin a football game. You play percentages to make sure that mistakes, errors get minimized in your calculation. That's the job of a coach. That's the job of a staff. That's the job of an organization to put these pieces together to make sure none of those things happen on the field. And then the players go out there and execute that game plan. And when you do, and you do so with minimal risk, with the highest reward possible, you're going to win football games. That's why good NFL teams don't turn the ball over. They control the clock and run the ball. They're efficient when they're passing the football. And then on defense, they generate a rush and they're respectable against the run. The Philadelphia Eagles, going back to the end of last season, do not represent any of those things. And I have a post-it note here. I wrote down the values that Nick Sirianni has for this football team. Now, I'm not going to be so. I'm usually somebody who is critical of Sirianni. I think, at the end of last year, I would have personally gotten rid of him. That's my opinion. But I understand why they kept him, and I understand, it's very hard just to get rid of good coaches. Because in the end, I think Sirianni isn't a terrible coach, okay? You can't come to the NFL and every year have a winning record and be a bad coach, despite the talent that you have, okay? We've seen Kyle Shanahan have some of the most talented offenses, some of the most talented players in San Francisco, and still not get the job done, okay? Nick Sirianni isn't a terrible coach. However, this offseason, the organization has said, Nick Sirianni, you got to keep your hands off this bad boy. Let Kellen Moore run the offense, let Vic Fangio run the defense. You're the CEO. That's the title that they gave him. And quite frankly, you could ask the question and it would be valid. What exactly is Nick Sirianni doing on this football team? And if the answer is to manage the game and make sure that situationally we're sound, if that's his only job, last night he did nothing of the sort to give you any hope that he can improve in that aspect. So since the end of last year, he has not been good in situational football. Hell, it even started in the Super Bowl game against the Chiefs. I thought there were calls in that game where I'm like, damn, Sirianni, you've been going for it on fourth down all night, and now you decide to throw a kick. Now you decide to punt it. Now, some of the calls don't make any sense. There's no feel to the game. Last night was another example of that. In the first quarter of last night's game, he decides to go for it on 4th and 3, 4th and 4 when you could have taken 3 points. I would have taken the kick there, seeing how the game was going at that point. Then later on, you're basically in the same position and you decide, we're going to go for it on 4th down. No rhyme or reason to do it. You just decided, hey, we got to keep and his answer was, we got to keep the defense basically on their toes. I'm paraphrasing here. I got to keep the defense on their toes. You can't expect to, run a 4th down play every single time or kick it every single time. If your offense is out there, you're running a fucking play. Okay, so it really doesn't matter whether or not you're keeping the defense on their toes. What good is it going to do? These kickers nowadays are so fucking good at kicking field goals. Even if you have the perfect defense for a fucking field goal defensive unit, most likely you're not getting the block anyway, unless you're getting blown up at the line of scrimmage. And this offensive line and the people on the special teams unit are good enough where that's not going to happen very often. Okay, so call me. I call bullshit on that. Okay. Guy's just trying to justify his actions here, okay? And while it wasn't his play call, it was his idea to throw the ball in that situation, okay? And it's the absolute worst decision you can make because the exact thing that could possibly happen that you don't want to happen happened. You stopped the clock. You stopped your drive. You ended up settling for 3, giving an offense a minute 45 to drive down the field against your poorest defense. When, if you look at it the other way, you could have ran the ball on 3rd down, get a couple yards, and then you know what? You could have been in a position to say, you know what? We can either run another play, throw it, pass it, push, or you settle for 3. And at least at that point, you get rid of clock. I would have ran it twice. Kill as much clock as you can, even if you don't get it. At least then you say, you know what? Kirk Cousins has got 60 seconds only to drive from the 3-yard line to the end zone or to get a field goal. And at that point, you got a defensive head coach on the opposite side of the field who is not necessarily going to be, aggressive in that sense. Most defensive head coaches are going to settle for getting the kick, getting points, conservative approaches to games because they trust their defense. That's basically what defensive coaches do. It's knowing the game when you're in the game. And Nick Sirianni, if his job is literally to be hands-off in every other aspect of coaching in Philadelphia and only manage the game, if that's your sole priority and all your energy is going into that, then quite frankly, you have not done a good job, okay? And listen, the values that he has, connect, compete, accountability, and fundamentals and football IQ. You tell me where any of these things apply to Philadelphia. Let's connection. Does this look like a team that's vibing with each other? Does this look like a team that seems to be on the same page with everybody? I don't know. I feel like every other time I'm seeing Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, they're not even speaking to each other. This whole offseason was literally Nick Sirianni, don't talk to anybody in the quarterback room. Don't talk to Kellen Moore. It's literally, be the CEO, be the guy above everything, making sure everything runs smoothly. He's not hands-on. He's not connecting. He's not talking to these players. And again, this is an organizational fault. I don't kill Nick Sirianni for it because this organization has decided, hey, we're going to make sure Nick Sirianni doesn't touch this thing because the last time he was hands-off, we were in a Super Bowl with Shane Steichen. Now we have a play caller who is an upgrade in Kellen Moore, at least from Nick Sirianni the season before, and we're trying to improve. Let him run the offense the way he sees fit. So connection, god awful. That's not a value that he seems to be living up to, or at least this team is living up to. Compete. When you're a team in the NFL that's awful against the run, are you competing? You're not even respectable against the run. It's one thing to be bad against the run because you don't have personnel. And maybe that's what it is in Philadelphia. But you know what? I'm looking at some of these defensive stats here for the rushing attack. We're giving up 158 yards a game on the ground, averaging 6.4 yards allowed per rush. You want to talk about competition and competing? Where's the fight? Where's the pride? That does not indicate that this team is competing. This team is laying down. This team is giving up. The other one, fundamentals. This team can't tackle for shit. This team has no ability to shed blocks, to be in the right spot on defense, to be respectable enough against the run to help your linebackers and your defensive backs out on the defensive line. On the offensive side of the ball, your fundamentals. Too many pre-snap penalties. Too many illegal men downfields. Throwing the ball accurately, on time, right decisions, not there. That leads to football IQ as well. Hell, even the accountability aspects, which we'll get to last. But the football IQ, Jalen Hurts has 27 seconds left with a timeout, and he's trying to go for a hero shot, when all you need is 15 to 20 yards to put Jake Elliott in field goal range. And we all know, at home, on Monday night, Jake is going to make the kick, because that's what he's paid to do. But Jalen Hurts decides, nah, I got to hold this bad boy and I got to chuck it down there because I got to be the hero of this game. And I have a saying for every quarterback that I know, every quarterback that's out there. Show me a quarterback and I'll show you an asshole. They want all the glory. They want all the praise. Okay? That's what quarterbacks are. And you need to be like that in order to be great. Because that's the only way you can push yourself. Because you want that adulation. You want the admiration. You want the victory. And that's not a knock on Jalen Hurts. It's a prerequisite for every good quarterback. You need to be like that. But you know what? It got him in trouble here because he's completely forgetting the thing that brought him the money that he has in his bag, which was being a good decision maker with the ball and not turning it over. This guy has become a turnover machine. The fundamentals of football: run the ball, stop the run, don't turn the ball over. Those are basic 3 things that you do for any football team. Philadelphia is doing none of those things, at least with any conviction or any commitment. And then on defense, the football IQ. You're going up against Kirk Cousins in an offense in a 2-minute drill. They have no timeouts left, and you're getting beat to the sideline. Sideline's your friend. The sideline's your friend in almost any situation other than the 2-minute drill. When you're on defense, every tackle should be in bounds. Nobody should beat you on the outside unless it's towards the middle of the field. And look, I'm not going to kill guys like Quinyon Mitchell and some of the younger players on this defense. But, in general, this defensive scheme and the positioning of these, they're lining up like 20 yards at safety off the line of scrimmage. They're like 20, 25 yards off. And you're sitting there and you're like, we're not going to get beat over the top. No way. But you know what Kirk Cousins is going to do? Because he's done so over the last few games of his damn career. He'll gut you in the fourth quarter if you give this guy time. He'll take the 15-yard chunks every play. Because that's what we're giving them. Vic Fangio's got to make an adjustment. So, the fundamentals, the football IQ, that's down the drain too. It looks terrible. Accountability is the last thing that we're going to talk about now, because this is the kicker. All offseason, this organization, this fan base, and everybody in the national media has been trying to find somebody to blame for the debacle that was 2023. And all the fingers have pointed to Nick Sirianni. And now this season, the defense still looks terrible. The offensive play calling, while a little bit better than last year, still is a little, it's not great at times. The quarterback turnovers are still a problem. And the play of this football team is not matching up to the talent. And again, we've killed Nick Sirianni for being the head coach and underperforming as a football team, as the leader of this football team or the CEO of this football team. And you know what he did on the microphone last night? He basically said, Kellen Moore's calling the plays. If you want to stir that up again, I'm the head coach. I'm the CEO of this football team. That's my job. Basically not taking accountability for clock management, not taking accountability for the 4th down fiascos. This team in general, not taking accountability in terms of getting these players to play better. Hell, you got reports coming out of the locker room saying that this is a player-led meeting was happening after the game and the coaches didn't even talk to the players. What the fuck are you supposed to do with that? You're grown-ass men as the coaching staff. It's your job to talk to these guys after every game, to find some way to get this team ready for the next one. If this football team is a player-led football team and the coaching staff has a minimal impact on this team, where everybody's flippant and everyone's distant and there's no communication, then this team has no shot. So now the question becomes, who do we blame? To me, you could blame Sirianni. You could blame Jalen Hurts. You could blame the players. I choose to blame the snake from the head down. Howie Roseman and this organization have done a disservice to this Philadelphia Eagles football team all offseason. You have a horrible setup with the head coach and its coaching staff, the head coach and the quarterback. You paid a quarterback money, and again, I think he was deserving of his money, and I think he is a player that can improve week by week. But you have done nothing to provide this guy stability, and you've stunted this man's growth as a quarterback because you keep meddling with this fucking football team by changing coordinators and changing coaching staff every fucking year. You bring in roster guys. You bring in players from teams that are scraps. Devin White is a scrap heap player. I like Zach Bond, but damn it, if he's your best linebacker, your linebackers are shit. You're still committed to Nakobe Dean when he's okay at best. You're not playing Jeremiah Trotter. You have Jordan Davis, who looks, quite frankly, not like a great player. Jalen Carter has been disappointing. Bryce Huff, don't even get me fucking started on that guy. That guy looks like he can't play for jack shit. Nolan Smith, same thing. Your best player on the defensive front is Brandon Graham. And that motherfucker's going to retire. And I say that respectfully. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say it like that. BG is going to retire after this year. And he's your best defensive lineman. You're telling me you can't find players who could give that kind of production? And then on the back end, I mean, my God. The positions that they're put in are not good to make plays, man. Not in today's NFL. I've said this in off-season episodes past. This organization is so hell-bent on running this fucking defensive system by Vic Fangio. It makes no sense to me. It's not a system that's indicative to beat the teams that you need to beat in the NFL. Think about all of the teams, okay, that have played against this Vic Fangio system. Look in San Francisco, Los Angeles, you know, all these places, and you see what they do every time they play a team that runs the system. The Kansas City Chiefs will drop a 40 burger on us. You play Miami or you play the San Francisco 49ers, they would drop a 40 burger on us. You play the Los Angeles Rams, they would drop 30 points on us. Hell, Green Bay dropped 29 on us. If you play the Texans, they would drop 30 to 40. You play the Saints, we play the Saints next week. They run a West Coast style system like the Shanahans and the Kubiaks. Okay? Clint Kubiak's their offensive coordinator. He's running a similar system. They could potentially drop a 30 burger on us. And yet we are consistently playing this stupid too-high shell that is claiming to not give up big plays, but always we're seeing plays going for 30, 40, 50 yards every fucking week. This organization is making this a bad football team at the moment because they're not building a good roster. You have poor coaching staff from the head coach, and you completely destroyed the hierarchy in terms of what a head coach could possibly do. You did it with Doug Peterson, and again, I'm not upset that you got rid of Doug Peterson, okay? That's one thing. You guys had your differences, and he was coming off a 4-win season. I get it. But now it's the second time a head coach and this front office has had a disconnect where to the point where it's like this head coach seems to be incompetent because he's not acquiescing to what we want to do, or he's acquiescing so much that he has no fucking authority in the locker room here. You got a quarterback who hasn't been able to take accountability for over a year. You got an offensive system that changes every goddamn year. You got a defensive system that keeps getting burnt by every team you play, making bad quarterbacks look good and good quarterbacks look great, and great quarterbacks look like Hall of Famers, and Hall of Famers looking like gods. This defensive scheme, this defensive system doesn't work. And it especially doesn't work when you don't have the fucking players on defense. shit linebackers, no pass rush, no interior pressure, and then on the back end, I like the players you got in the secondary, but holy fucking shit, every other goddamn play I see, it's a missed tackle by these guys. Jeez, now I'm getting hot. I have no idea what to expect from this team anymore, other than what I would expect from a bad football team. That's what I've come to expect now, okay? Jalen Hurts, because he's learning yet another new offensive system, is going to continue to turn the ball over because they're asking him to do things he's never been asked to do. Read defenses, set protections, read the plays, post-snap. Hasn't been asked to do that. And you see in some instances, he reads it perfectly. And in other instances, he reads it terribly. That's growing pains. I could deal with a quarterback learning a new system, maybe turning it over a few times. I can deal with that aspect. But everything else, the inexplicable play calling, the situationals that this team ends up executing, going and not going for it on fourth down with like no rationale, not bringing any sort of fucking pressure. And I know the one time we got burned on the Darrell Mooney touchdown. I get it. But generating no pass rush, no change in the scheme or the philosophy to put these guys in a better position to make plays. And then on top of it, you got an organization who put together a horrific defensive roster that can't do jack shit. You got like Moro Jomo, Thomas Booker, Brandon Graham looking like the stars on this defensive front when you have players like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and then you paid Bryce Huff, who literally has one more tackle than I do. And I'm sitting on a fucking chair in my basement. This guy's getting paid $18 million, and you can't even play him on first, second down. Guy's a joke. And that's the big off-season acquisition. But no, Howie Roseman was cooking this off-season. This team is poised. They made all the moves they needed to make to go ahead and win his Lombardi trophy. Give me a fucking break. It's maddening. And now, all I can expect this season is this trend, and yes, it is a trend, to continue. You're going to win games based on your talent, and you're going to lose stupid games based on the lack of talent on the defensive side of the ball. If we're not dropping 35 a game, we're not winning a lot of football games because there is no instance, there is no way that defense is going to be able to hold any offense under 25 a game. That's what they're going to average giving up. It's awful. They scored 22 points last night, and they scored basically, 7 points in the last 60 seconds of the fucking game? Don't let the score fool you. That defense did not play great last night. They're being manhandled on the run. Couldn't stop the run. Kirk Cousins had all day to fucking look and, examine the defense. He literally had enough time to walk to Minnesota go to his house, bake a batch of fucking cookies, and then come back to the field and hand it out to everybody on the fucking team. And you have Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Bryce Huff, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams on your fucking defensive line, and you can't generate any fucking pressure? It's a fucking joke. And now we got the fucking Saints, who look like a juggernaut. Gave the business to Carolina and gave the business to the Cowboys. And what the fuck are you going to do to stop that football team? You don't have the players to do it. You could blame that on Howie Roseman. And because of all of this, because of the nonsense that's happening here, with the inability to connect with your players, the inability to connect with your front office, the inability to compete or lack thereof, The ability and the willingness to compete. No pride against the run. Lack of accountability in what this roster construction is on the defensive side of the ball. Lack of accountability on the decision making from the head coach with situational play calling. Lack of accountability from my quarterback who just continues to be a book of quotes. I'm tired of hearing fucking quotes that are really, really motivational. And I get it. You're one of those quarterbacks that I listen. I love Jalen. I respect Jalen a lot. And I actually don't think he played terrible last night. But you know what? I'm tired of hearing these fucking quotes. I just got to be better. It's a great opportunity for us. I don't give a fuck about the opportunity if you ain't cashing in. It's time to cash in. Too much talent on this fucking football team for us to come up short every goddamn week or every time there's a big game. Every time you got a lead in the fourth quarter. We can't blunder. Well, I think we had, 5 or 6 games with a lead entering the fourth quarter, and we've only won 2 of them. The rest of the league wins 90 out of the 101 games with that specific scenario. You basically win 90% of your games when you got a lead going into the fourth quarter. But this fucking team can only win 2 out of 5 times. That's coaching. That's situational play calling. That's lack of accountability. Lack of fundamentals. You can't tackle. Can't stop the run. Can't shed blocks. Can't catch the ball. Stupid penalties. Being in the wrong spot. And then football IQ. Again, a lot of those things kind of overlap one another. Inability to understand the situation you're in. Inability to feel out the game and say, you know what, the run's really working. Let's just keep pounding the rock. They haven't stopped the tush push all night. They haven't stopped Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley on the ground all night. At one point, he was averaging 10 yards a carry, and he didn't touch the ball again until the second half. And like I said, this roster construction is so poorly built on the defensive side of the ball. I don't even know why I'm so angry. This should be expected. So, this tumultuous and this horrific defense and season is going to continue until this team figures out how to be on the same page. And the way this team is constructed and the way this organization has built this football team, are we going to be in a position where we have to rebuild this thing once again by breaking it all apart like we did with the Wentz and the Doug Peterson era? I hope not. But the more and more we see these chips line up and these dominoes fall, it looks like it's leading closer and closer and closer to that. But the one thing this organization has done is made sure that everyone in the national media, everybody in Philly, everybody within the locker room knows it ain't on them. It's on one guy. And that's Nick Sirianni. And unfortunately, it's going to lead to this man, despite what happens this season, it's going to lead to him losing his damn job. Fairly or unfairly, it's going to happen. And if that happens, the next question is going to be, are we a dysfunctional organization? I don't know the answer to that yet. But you know what? If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and acts like a duck, I don't think it's a mongoose. It's a fucking duck. Hey! Thank you so much for watching the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. If you want to continue to support the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. Also, check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Riding the Bench Eagles Pod. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're on there. Thank you so much for listening, and please join us next time here at the Riding the Bench Eagles Podcast.